I think the goal of our life now is to be more intentional with our actions and with our words and with the meaning of life, and to teach our other two kids what's most important in life. A lot of us learn that later in life, but our kids have to learn that a little bit earlier.
That is the impact the life of a beautiful kid like Sydney has. They teach us what is important. I am Seth Carnell, and this is the Go Shout Love podcast. Today's conversation is with Samantha and Addison, the parents to 3-year-old Sydney, who has been diagnosed with Infantile Neuraxonal Dystrophy, a very rare genetic disease that only affects 300 to 500 people worldwide. The best way to describe this diagnosis, according to Samantha, is that it's like ALS for kids. Her body is growing, but her brain is shrinking. She plateaued developmentally at 14 months old and is currently at a 6-month-old developmental level. To provide context, this beautiful, joyful girl's health is a serious situation, with the typical lifespan of her diagnosis being 5 to 10 years of age. Not to be overlooked by her diagnosis is her full and loving personality. Sydney has a profound impact on anyone she comes in contact with and leaves an imprint on people's hearts. This episode lets us in on who Sydney is and her complicated medical journey. We are very grateful to Samantha and Addison. Being willing to open up and share their journey is not an easy thing to do. But one thing you will find out about this family is that they believe strongly and have learned that they can do hard things. You will hear more about that in this episode. This conversation took place over Skype, which is how we were able to meet the families this month. A lot of factors went into the decision to feature these families by meeting them virtually, the most important of which is making sure that we keep the safety and wellness of this month's families as the top priority. COVID-19 has had an effect on many ways people and businesses function. Go Shout Love is no different. So while this month looks a bit different than usual, and our podcast episodes are not quite as clear, we believe good work, like what we seek to do for the families we feature, is exactly what the world needs right now. So with that, let's learn more about Sydney and get to know this wonderful family. First of all, thank you guys for joining us. Can't wait to start shouting love for Sydney this month or next month. Just simply to start off, tell us about your family. How old is Sydney and her siblings, and what do you guys like to do as a family?
Sydney Jo is 3 years old. She is probably the most bright part of everyone in our family's day. She is our youngest. We do have a 6-year-old boy named Kanan. And then we have a 10-year-old girl named Kinley. And then Addison and I got married about 7 years ago and live in southeast Nebraska. And we live for Sydney's good days right now. And trying to be, I think the goal of our life now is to be more intentional with our actions and with our words and with the meaning of life, and to teach our other two kids what's most important in life. A lot of us learn that later in life, but our kids have to learn that a little bit earlier. And I'm a nurse by trade, and Addison is a 6th grade teacher. So we both deal with kids and families a lot, and through good and bad times.
What area of nursing are you in?
I work in labor and delivery. I'm actually a perinatal quality nurse, but excuse me, I actually, for the last 4 years, have been the perinatal bereavement coordinator as well. So I've had the opportunity to work with high-risk families that whose babies we know have life-limiting diagnosis, and help them manage their family and what's going to happen within the next few months. When you get pregnant, nobody thinks about what the end of your baby's life is going to be like. But that was part of my job, to help those high-risk families through that, and to be their mode of support, their comfort, their constant through the roller coaster of emotions for them.
Has that, again, I just want to preface this by saying you don't have to answer anything. Obviously, this is a delicate situation. Has that helped or kind of prepare you for what you guys are going through at all? Or was it still so, I'm trying to think of a good word here, I guess unexpected?
When I was in nursing school, I actually worked in the pediatric intensive care unit as well, and saw a lot of horrible situations and things I hope a lot of people never have to see. And then I worked as a pediatric intensive care nurse for a year before I became a labor and delivery nurse. And I believe that I was intentionally, purposely put into those positions to help myself and my own family deal with them later on. You have to separate, obviously, your work and your home life, but it's kind of joined it all together. And I believe strongly that I don't know if we would have been as stable as we've been over the last couple of years if it hadn't been for my own previous knowledge and experiences, especially with Sid's complex medical issues that we deal with every day.
Let's take a step back. And can you just describe Sydney's personality? What makes her happy?
She's super silly. She loves to watch people fall down, especially her brother. She likes when we act things out with stuffed animals, but it especially gets funny when you launch them across the room or something like that and fall down with them. So she's got that really fun sense of humor still. And then her laugh just kind of makes everybody else laugh. So
I always joke that if Sydney wasn't special like she is, she would be our Henri third child. She just loves to laugh at everybody, and just
she likes funny sounding words. Like, we don't know if she understands the words, but it's things like guacamole and lasagna, words like that. Yeah. She'll latch onto them and find them hilarious.
And the funniest word the best word I think she finds funniest right now is Corona. She thinks it's hilarious.
Finding joy in the midst of the pandemic. Excellent.
Yes.
And what about her siblings?
I'd say her siblings are pretty stereotypical kids. We have a sassy 10-year-old and who's a little mama to our youngers. And then we have a little boy who is wild.
Right? Wild. You say six years old?
Yes.
Wild 6-year-old boy. Yep.
But I don't know if we would have made it through some of these days without them, without their optimism through it all.
Yeah.
And they are her light every day. When she hears them come in, she can't, talk or tell us what she wants or what she's thinking, but you just know that she's waiting for them to walk through the door, and she's waiting for them to come up and do something to make her laugh. And there's just something special about that sibling love, especially our they don't only help her, she helps them see the true meaning of life. And
yeah. We understand it's been a journey to arrive at a diagnosis for her. Can you walk us through that?
Want me to?
Yeah, you can do it.
Well, we started to notice that something might be wrong shortly after she turned 1. And, she was getting close to walking, cruising on furniture, but she never really took off. Mm-hmm. And then it was not long after that, she needed little stents placed in her eyes because they were always watering. And so they figured while they would have to put her out for that, they would do an MRI of her brain because they really didn't know any answers talking to the first doctors around here. And that came back basically inconclusive. But then we were getting close to 18 months old, and she was still struggling to walk, going to physical therapy then, trying to help her get started using a walker. And so then that's when we started to we knew we had to reach out and, find doctors that could dig a little deeper. And then it wasn't long after that we went up to, we kind of got hooked up with the Shriners and went up to Minnesota. Mm-hmm. There. And they looked at Sydney and initially thought it was some type of muscular dystrophy or a myopathy of some kind. And so that's where we were at initially. And then we got hooked up with a study out at the NIH in DC through our doctors in Minnesota. They said, hey, there's a study out there. Take Sydney out there. You may learn something. It'll help them. They'll pay for it. And those doctors looked at Sydney and said, this is not just muscular. This is neuro. Just by hearing her story and watching her move around. And so then we knew we had maybe something else on our hands.
How old was she at this time?
How old was she when we went to the NIH?
about 28 months, I think. So 2.5.
So that was a 9-month, year-long process from when we got started just to get to there. We still didn't know a whole lot.
But through all that time, she did regress. I mean, there was definitely some changes, and from when the first doc saw her to, 9 months later.
I would say that through most of that time, though, I think we were telling ourselves that she was still, making progress or going to make progress, because we were going to physical therapy twice a week with her, and speech therapy, and, just giving her all the help we could.
Yeah.
Through that process. And then came another MRI of the brain back here in Nebraska. And that was when we really, that's when it really set in that it was bad. That doctor, that neurologist spoke with the connection we had out at NIH, and it didn't take them long to, come back to us after that MRI and say, this is really bad. And at that point, we had been trying to do some of our own research too, and think about her symptoms. And we found out that there was some leukodystrophy in my extended family. And when we mentioned that, the neurologist looked at the MRI and said, that's potentially what this is, a leukodystrophy.
Okay.
And so it was September of last year, so she would have been about 2.5.
I was wondering if anybody had given you other potential diagnoses along these paths, and then that's what you would research to see if it aligned with what she was doing.
There was
that was when we first had the muscular dystrophy, myopathy, so we were looking through those, trying to align. And there was an initial genetic testing too in Minnesota that said, what was it?
It was SYNE1, which was, it was still spinocerebellar ataxia was what that one was, which was another neuro disorder. And then the other one was Emery-Dreifuss muscular dystrophy.
But they called it Emery-Dreifuss because they thought it was purely muscular. So they were leaning towards that one. But that was a really broad genetic testing at that point. And then that September, her being 2.5, that brain MRI is really what kind of got the ball rolling. And the NIH previously had taken some samples for some deeper genetic testing. And we were just kind of in a waiting game, waiting for that to come back so they could kind of put all the information together. And we stayed pretty impatient. And
I would imagine so.
Right. Even though we knew it was bad, we wanted to know what it was.
It's kind of like a ghost that you can't fight it. You can't defend it. You can't defend your baby and you can't do anything about it. But,
that's how we
That's a great analogy. That paints a perfect picture.
Fight somebody who, is an intruder walking into your house rather than a ghost, because you can't see a ghost.
Yeah.
And so that was what it was for us. And so then we ended up hearing about CHOP out in Philadelphia.
Is that the Children's Hospital?
Yeah.
Okay.
And we ended up going out there twice. And the second time was in February. What was the first time?
The first time was in December. It was the week before Christmas. And Dr. Vanderver is actually a friend of one of Addison's mom's extended cousins. And because he's actually the president of the Leukodystrophy Association, his mom's extended cousin is, and which is leukodystrophy is a super rare disorder. So anyway, we got hooked up with Dr. Vanderver, who is the director of the leukodystrophy clinic out there. So kind of nice to have a little bit of connections. And at this point, Sydney's now in 3 different clinical studies, and within the NIH and the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. And she goes, I don't really think this is leukodystrophy. Actually, I think this is something mitochondrial or something much deeper than leukodystrophy. Because
so a lot of these medical professionals are confused.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, sure. And so the nice thing about CHOP was, though, they didn't wait around. Then they said, we're going to run this full panel of genetic testing. And of course, the reason we had, doctors had held off on that before, I think, was just because of the cost of something like that. They're like, well, can we figure it out another way? Because, to run these full-scale genetic tests is super expensive. And so, but when we got to CHOP, they were bound and determined to figure it out. And so they went right for that genetic test. Which one was it?
Which is whole genome sequencing. So originally the NIH only starts at whole exome sequencing because it's far less expensive than whole genome is. And whole exome's kind of like, you're looking at all the rarest disorders, or all the rare disorders, the most common rare disorders there are. Then whole genome's like, I'm going to look at every part of that cell and that DNA within it and the RNA and everything. And it's super expensive and most of it's research based right now. So we had to sign up for, more studies for her and agree that we would let them use her DNA and kind of run through it like that. And
Dr. Vanderver knew what she was looking for. Yeah. And that was part of the reason that she wanted to do it too, is because I think she knew by looking at Sydney and hearing the whole story, she was pretty sure she knew what she was looking for. She just needed that test to confirm it. And so when we went back in February, they had an answer for us.
And keep in mind, this is the 5th hospital we've been to.
Right.
It's not like the first or second. It was the 5th. And I mean, if anything explains more, I mean, nothing really explains more than, medicine is very, very gray, and it's not black and white. And there's so many things we don't know about our genes yet. But essentially now Addison, myself, and Sydney all have whole genome sequencing. So we know from now on, the good and the bad. And if they wouldn't have done that, we still wouldn't know. And from that, Dr. Vanderver seen 12 of these kids. And most of them are from around the world. Only a couple of them that she's seen were from America. And there's actually, since then, we've reached out to one of the gals that started the INAD, that's what they call it, INAD organization. And her daughter was one of the first, I believe, to be diagnosed with it in America. And she's from New Jersey. And her daughter was the first one to do the trial drug with it, which is called Retrotope. And she ended up telling us that there's only 20 to 30 of these kids in America. And that we know of course, and that worldwide there's only about 300. So, and she said, and I know
that's
90 of these kids.
Extremely rare.
Yeah. So it's the rare of the rare. Not only did our daughter have something rare, but it's the rare of the rare. And
I'm assuming with each hospital that you visited, you said made like 5 major different hospitals or in clinical trials. Did the severity kind of just did you feel the severity increase with each one?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
Yes.
it was kind of
Everyone.
I imagine your stress journey is just just keeps on climbing every step of the way.
I don't know. When we went in February back to the Children's Hospital there in Philadelphia, I mean, at that point we kind of knew it. So that one was almost a relief, at that point. It was like that part of the journey was completed then,
Yeah.
And that's where we stopped putting her through testing. That's where we stopped making her do therapy that wasn't going to benefit, or the outcomes of her life, and where we weren't going to stress our whole family out just to make it to a couple appointments a week for her, when we had been going to 4 to 5 to 6 appointments a week for her. And that's only her. Yeah, absolutely. And the strain on it put on our family, and but the strength that our other kids and that, us as a whole have gotten from it is just tremendous. And would we change a thing? No, absolutely not. There's only one thing that we have a little bit of hesitation on anymore is the MRIs. So when she had one when she was 18 months, she had one when she was almost 2.5. And then she had another one when she was almost 3. And each one actually got worse, but we were told there wasn't significant change, but unfortunately there actually was. She actually had iron deposits on her brain when she was 18 months, and nobody caught it here.
Why is that?
Then, so Dr. Vanderver, God bless her, she's so sweet and so kind and graceful. She said that she was like, I look at these every day. Every day I look at these. And I don't blame those neurologists or those radiologists for missing this, because I know what I'm looking for. They don't know what they're looking for. And they're just looking for something generalized that's abnormal. Well, none of our brains are the same. None of us have a perfect brain. And her whole cerebral cortex had actually shrunken, and her cerebellum had actually gotten smaller. I mean, just within 6 months. And since then, the doctors, her neurologists that are local, have said that those hospitals have actually learned a lot from Sydney's case, and they've already made improvements and revamped protocols. If they don't know, they're going to keep passing it on. They're not just going to stop looking at it anymore. Which of course that's really hard as a parent to hear, oh gosh, I could have done something about this,
right,
a year before, but hindsight's always 20/20. And we don't think that it would have had a significant change in our outcomes. So,
but maybe it could go on to benefit somebody now who goes to those hospitals. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And that's our goal. I mean, a lot of people live their whole life not knowing their purpose in life. And we know that Sydney has a purpose.
Kind of changing gears away from like the medical journey. What do you want people to know about Sydney?
We want everybody to understand, know how grateful she is and how she only sees the happy. She can't understand any of the sadness in the world, and all she sees is happiness. And that's her resilience is incredible. She's more resilient than any adult, any kid I've ever seen in my life. And if there was anything that people need to remember is that, not only did they have an impact on her life, but she has, if you can't see the impact that she has on you, then you're blind. Yeah. I mean, it changes everybody's perspective. We've made such great friends, and you do lose friends too over trials. It's hard to take. But there's nobody that's more resilient than she is.
It takes a lot of vulnerability, and we do appreciate it to share your story with others. How have you worked through that, being vulnerable with friends? Some and friends and family and coworkers. Some can relate and stick around, and some don't know how to relate. How do you guys work through that?
You kind of choose your battles. You really do. When you get in the survival mode as a parent, I really do think a lot of parents, when they have young kids, are in survival mode anyway. You have certain levels of ability to cope. And when you get in a situation like Addison and I are in, we're kind of forced into, you don't always know how you're going to handle that, but we've learned to lean on the people that have stuck around. Mm-hmm. And if they haven't stuck around, then we haven't really thought twice about it. There's too much to gain in our life right now to be with her, than to waste time thinking about, people or situations or things we can't change.
It's like those life lessons that should be applicable to everybody. You guys get to learn, maybe become wiser out of it because of Sydney.
Oh, absolutely. I think we talk about that all the time, how much better of human beings we are just because of her, just because of our hardships that we've had to go through that, hopefully most people never have to go through.
What's been the positive side of letting people in on your story?
We know that Sydney has a limited life, and I think everybody looks at their kids for joy and to bring joy to other people's lives and to be so proud of them. And we are so proud of the way of telling everybody about our little girl that is so resilient and I guess has given us everything that.
What was the question again?
I was talking about about how much vulnerability it takes to share your guys' story, and you've been able to work through that vulnerability with friends and family and coworkers. There's been a negative side to that and a positive side. What's the positive side of letting people in on that story?
I always think about how you don't know what other people are going through. And I think that once people see the challenges that others are going through, then that becomes more and more apparent. I mean, that's a skill that we all have to have. We have to have a little bit of empathy and understanding, or even understand people just because we don't know what they're going through. And I think by people seeing our journey, then they're, able to see that, hey, there's other things going on out there. And I think that makes us more conscious of what other people have going on too. I mean, everybody's got challenges. They're just all a little bit different. I think another positive thing is, like Sam was kind of saying, we found out who was in our corner really quickly.
Yeah.
Was strongly in our corner. I mean, there are people that came out, ready to battle right away to be on our side, to help us out. We found out a lot about people in our community and people around us and family. And so I think that was a really good thing for sure.
Has it,
and it's not,
go for it.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's not one of those things that we set out saying, like, we want everybody to know about our situation and what's going on with us. But it just kind of came natural to us to realize, people need to know. And it's difficult to see what's happening behind the curtain or what's happening in private. But it got to the point where it was almost therapy for us to be able to tell everybody about our daughter and, how many great things there are in the world and how many good people are around us. Man, I mean, there are some days that you don't think you can make it through, but somehow one of them just shows up at our doorstep with food. And we didn't tell anybody it was a rough day. We didn't tell anybody what we were going through at that time, but literal food would just show up at our front door. What can I help you with? Is there anything that we can do for you? And we didn't even have to ask.
Necessary.
Yeah.
Has it had any effect on your careers? Has it changed the way you see your Samantha, your patients, Addison, your students?
Yeah, that's one thing I've always, I've had to get better at every year of teaching is that same thing that I just mentioned is you don't know what goes on at home for each of those students. Sometimes as teachers, we just see the student that shows up in the classroom, the one that doesn't want to do the work. Maybe it's kind of a knothead, but we don't know if at home they're going through something else.
Yeah.
That doesn't allow them to come into the classroom and do things the same as every other student. And so, that's just made me have to, have my eyes even more open and communicate with my students and try to figure those things out, figure out the why for each of them. And that at the age that I teach at 6th grade, sometimes it's even just small things that you wouldn't think should, be wrecking their day or their world that day. And it can be a big deal. And so that's made me even more understanding. Yeah. And then sometimes I see their maturity too, like in my athletes, I never wanted to miss a day of coaching because, I wanted to show them that I'm there for them and I'm there to help them and we're going to battle together. And I quickly realized that they understand if I'm gone and they don't even have to ask questions.
Yeah.
They know if I'm gone, it's for the right reasons. And so, learn that kids are pretty sharp in that way. So yeah, definitely changed a lot of things. It was eye-opening for me.
It really has brought out the best in so many people that we may never even had the chance of knowing. But we do because of Sydney. They wanted to know her. They wanted to get to know her, not just her pretty face, but her pretty smile and her pretty heart. And I spent years and years watching and analyzing families of kids with special needs when I worked in the PICU. And I always kind of wondered how they did it. How did they get through the daily life when they had, especially other kids that they had to be a normal parent and then they had to be a special needs parent. And also, like, how do you keep having faith in something that just kind of kept getting harder and harder and, and something greater than us. And, especially when you have friends that don't have special needs kids, you get kind of, at some point, I think so everybody gets a little bit bitter when you like, why can't I just have the normal? But, I mourn the loss of babies and kids that I hardly even knew.
Yeah.
And but I also helped so many of them. And I think my empathy kind of started all through there. And when it became myself, and you don't ever think it's going to be yourself. You don't ever think it's going to be you. That's going to happen to me. That's going to happen to somebody close to me. No way.
Mm-hmm.
But really, in reality, why not me? Why not us? Why not our family?
I'm sure there's a growth that you're experiencing that allows you to relate to people in a way that you've never been able to relate to them before, and maybe that's the positivity, or maybe that's the empathetic voice that they need to hear in the right moment.
Mm-hmm. And the judgmental. We actually just talked today about how can people be judgmental? How can you do that when you don't actually know what's going on in their life?
Right.
You don't know how hard every day, every hour, every second is.
And people aren't going to show you on the surface.
No.
You just have to go into a situation knowing you can't judge what's going on. You don't know what's underneath of that.
And genes are weird. They're unpredictable. And rare is more normal to us than I think normal ever was. It's always kind of a gamble. I mean, having kiddos
yeah.
But I think we were put in the place we were supposed to be. And some days are harder than others.
Well, it seems so is Sydney. She's had such a profound impact on people already. So many lives are blessed just by her being her. And that's incredible to hear. What is your guys's support love language, if that makes sense? What is something someone could say or drop off that would make you feel supported?
I don't know. I think we find it in almost everything. Some things are more helpful than others, but I think we feel it in everything, whether it was, just the people that brought food to our door. We could feel it right away, like how much pressure that took off us for that evening, not having to cook and clean up, and just knowing that it took them some time and they had to go, get whatever it was that they were going to make. And
mm-hmm.
they were thinking about us to even do that. The people who have stepped up to, help watch Sydney as she gets harder and harder to take care of. Gosh, they're such a blessing to us. There's not many of them that can handle it, that can understand, that are willing to learn and do something hard. But I think those people, especially that action, we feel like they're family.
Yeah.
What else the people done for us that?
The fundraisers, and gosh.
Yeah, there's big things. There's big things.
Like huge things, like the monetary donation. That stuff is just incredible. Oh my gosh. I have no words for how much people have done for us. It almost takes my breath away.
Is it hard? Was it hard to accept initially?
Oh my gosh.
Oh yeah. That goes totally against my nature. It was really hard to say yes. I found myself saying, okay. Yeah. just even the little things.
Yeah.
Can we make this t-shirt? Can we make this wristband and sell it and donate the money to you guys? And those things were hard at first. But once we kind of gave in, then it was just being super thankful after that, not being conscious, just being thankful.
Well, and I also think it got so hard to say no because you don't have all the energy you once had. You just didn't have it anymore.
Yeah.
So saying no was harder than just going with the flow. We just want people to remember her. I just want people to, initially I was like, I want to travel with her. I want to make memories with her. I want our kids to remember everything about her.
Mm-hmm.
And now we look back at pictures, and our older kids, they they don't even really remember her even cruising around furniture. They kind of forgot that was even the Sydney before. And that hurts. That hurts deep. But we just made so many memories, and so many people got to meet her that may have never known her.
Yeah. And there's people that are responsible for us being able to make those memories and spend that much time together. So yeah, it's
an invaluable blessing.
Right.
They've helped us in so many ways.
Yeah, our whole world was rocked. I like to tell people our pandemic started back in September when we realized that our daughter was probably terminal.
Yeah.
And so when the pandemic actually hit, it wasn't a huge shock for us.
Helps make that a little lighter, I guess.
Yeah, it really did. Our life didn't change significantly, I don't feel like.
Is there a word or phrase that has helped your family kind of keep pushing forward?
Oh yeah, we can do hard things. And I have some friends that have been going through some really tough times, like right alongside me in our tough times, and that's kind of what we text each other. Like, we can do hard things. Mm-hmm. Today is hard, but we can do hard things. And we can do hard things, not but. And we can do hard things.
You're finding yourself capable more than you probably expected.
Oh yeah, I think probably more than we ever wanted to be.
Right.
Weirdly capable.
Yeah, like there's got to be something else.
Yeah. This is unimaginable.
Yeah, a higher power keeping us going one foot after another.
Thank you for listening. If you are new to Go Shout Love, we do amazing things for amazing families with kids on rare medical journeys. Each month we shout love for families through the sale of creative apparel inspired by the kiddos. This month's Love Dives Deep design is inspired by Sydney. Visit our website at goshout.love to support Sydney through the purchase of a t-shirt, a tumbler, a tank, or other items. Every item sold in August will be used to help cover the cost of a new bath chair and neck roll to support Sydney's head. 2 items that are not covered by insurance. This month we are featuring 2 kiddos from Nebraska. Stay tuned as our next episode features Matt and Liz, the parents to Teddy. We are very excited to feature and shout love for these families and these incredible kiddos. I'm very proud of our community. Even during the season that our country is in, people are still sharing these stories, wearing their shirts, and shouting love for these families. Keep it up, please. Let's not let this virtual limitation slow us down from remaining a strong community supporting these kiddos. Let's keep it up and go shout love.